see Dan Diker. Dan, welcome to the programme. So, Dan, as you see it now, I was speaking to a lady who was from a TV channel in Iran, and I was looking at it saying, look, how are the Iranian people going to be able to establish control? Donald Trump has sent the weapons in, and there's a kind of war now raging in the Middle East. How will the Iranian people be able to overcome the IRGC, in your view, and take back control, as it were?
Well, thanks for the question. The Israeli and American joint forces have leveled so much damage and degradation to the IRGC forces. And I think we're talking about a damage assessment that has not been made public yet, but we're talking about thousands of IRGC officials and operatives that have been eliminated, beginning with the Israeli elimination of the senior command of the IRGC, and of course the elimination of the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. This has created a tremendous amount of doubt and disunity among the ranks of the IRGC. We do know that there have and continue to be a number of defections within the IRGC. We don't know exactly how this will turn out in terms of opposition leadership taking control, because there is still a lot of work to be done to further degrade and even dismantle the IRGC and their associated civilian security forces control within Iran. But I can tell you that with the hundreds of planes between the U.S. and Israeli forces really dislodging and neutralizing the Iranian anti-missile and ballistic program and nuclear program sites, it's just a matter of time, in my assessment, until the likelihood that this regime collapses and that an opposition leadership takes shape. We don't know exactly how it will happen. That's the nature of this type of warfare. But I think there's a high level of confidence that it will happen.
Oh, well, let's stress test this assumption, because there have been some fears that the IRGC is just a many-headed hydra. You chop off one head and 15 grow in its place. We know that it's likely that the Americans and the Israelis can likely get some form of air superiority, but no one is talking about boots on the ground. The IRGC is utterly brutal, has an almost total monopoly on weaponry. I mean, what if they just mow down protesters after protesters? Yes, we can always strike them from above, but ultimately, what if the IRGC is far more sticky than your assumptions presume?
Well, you may be right, but we certainly don't know. I would just correct one assessment that you've made. There already are boots on the ground. It doesn't mean that there are American soldiers or special forces on the ground, but it does mean that there are plenty of operatives on the ground within the opposition and others that are assisting them. That at a certain turning point, they'll be able to take control. Let's bear in mind that the state television has been hit. IRGC strategic headquarters have been hit, and those sites are being continually hit and softened and degraded. So this type of strategic bombing campaign is very different than the Iraq campaign, in which British and American forces took place with Allied forces in 2003. This is going to be led by certain opposition forces, some of which are armed and others which are being assisted by other forces already on the ground for a long time in Iran. We have to remember that after the regime has mass murdered between 40 and 50,000 of its own people and wounded in excess of 500,000, the public and those leaders within the public are still coming out, and they are watching and cheering and receiving great injections of encouragement and enthusiasm from the ongoing military operation. So again, this is just, in my view, a question of time. We have not seen a military operation like this against this murderous regime in its 47-year history. and it will continue until victory.
All right, Dan. Well, listen, we can now report that 4 US personnel have been killed. They have been killed. Dan, I wanted to get your response to that breaking news.
Look, this is the ravages and the tragedies of war. Unfortunately, claim the lives of those in the military. I just would like to remind all of us that in the last 47 years since 1979, there have been thousands of innocent victims that have been claimed by this messianic regime, and therefore, the loss of 7 or 8 American soldiers, as tragic as every life is, has thus far been a price that I think President Trump has said twice is worth paying. That sacrifice is worth making for dismantling the Nazi regime of our time.
OK, well, look, my other big concern is that the more desperate the Iranian forces get, the more indiscriminate their bombing will be. And this could end up being dragged out for quite some time. And in that time, we may sort of get a little bit of tiring of support for the United States and the allies who are going into Iran. And it could eventually turn the people actually against the forces that are trying to assist. Then you end up with a situation where actually the Iranian people then side with the Iranian regime, and then you've kind of gone in there and wasted your time. A bit like the result of Afghanistan, different way
around. I think it's a very different case than the one that you're describing. The Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs has been in very close contact with the highest levels of the Iranian opposition, both in the Iranian diaspora in Europe as well as in country. And the word that we're receiving constantly is that the Iranian people have decided that all red lines have been crossed in Iran, and the risk of what you're describing, which we call false patriotism, is not in the cards. I would add that the fact that the United Kingdom, France, and Germany have already expressed interest and readiness to join combat operations, some of them defensive. The UK has indicated that it would join the offensive operations, really testifies to the opposite of the fears that we're discussing now in this particular part of our discussion. So what the Iranian regime has done is actually committed suicide by its own will by attacking 6 Arab countries neighboring the Islamic Republic. So when you have a combination of the strongest power on earth, which is the United States, together with one of its greatest allies, the State of Israel, and the Western Alliance closing in on this regime, as long as it doesn't take years and years, which is the problem that we witnessed in Iraq and Afghanistan, I think that the chances are very good for a positive outcome, and an Iran that the Iranian people can lead towards a future of freedom, of liberty, and perhaps even of some sort of constitutional democracy, which is what they had before this Islamic Republic became the Islamic Republic in 1979.
Well, let's hope so indeed. Dan Diker, author of Iran's Race for Regional Supremacy. Really appreciate your expertise on this issue. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the discussion.
Thank you very much.